welcome to Sacred Spaces. My name's Michaela Driebeg and today we're at Agilent Technology in Mulgrave. And I also have with me not one, not two, but four people that are going to talk us through some of the thinking behind this amazing building that we have. So we have Anna Maskill, who's an architect from SKM. Welcome, Anna.
Thank you.
And we also have Sebastian Ward, who's here from Wilkore Constructions and was a project manager. Welcome, Sebastian.
Thanks, Michaela.
So no doubt there was a lot of thinking behind this building before it even began construction. So can you tell us a little bit about the brief that you were given, Anna?
Yeah, sure. So when we met with Phil Binns, who's the general manager, he said essentially two things to me, which was, one, can you please make it very elegant? Springvale Road is not the most elegant space in Melbourne. And the second one was, can it in some way physically represent spectroscopy, so the science of studying light? And so we had this idea of the veil, so this kind of very soft blurring of reality that would create an effect internally of kind of dappled light that was constantly changing. So a real space for creativity and thinking for the scientists.
And from a construction point of view, Sebastian, what's some of the things that you needed to keep in mind as well?
So the veil is probably very interesting in the fact that the project in its whole was designed and documented at tender stage. The veil, however, wasn't. It required a fair amount of input from the builder, the architect and the engineers to come up with what we can see here today. It was a collaborative approach. The design itself was completed by Anna, being the architect. The design consulted out to various contractors that came together to give us what we've got here today.
And how long did this labour of love go for?
It took a fair while actually. It was probably, I don't know, pre-construction, but by the time we came on the project, it was probably 4 or 5 months to get a finalised design that we could effectively start building from, yeah.
And what were some of the challenges that you faced along the way?
Biggest challenge probably was the camber and the steel. It's a little bit different, this type of facade, in that we've got the screen, which is a proprietary item made by Locker Group, but it's suspended off cables, which is a little bit different in its application, and we've got these fascia beams that support the cables. There's a lot of load on these cables, 1.5 tonne on each of them, so we had to pre-camber the steel, getting that camber exactly right so that when we tensioned the cables, it came out perfectly flat and level at the end of the project. That was probably the biggest challenge.
Did you want to add anything to that, Anna?
I was just going to say, it certainly is quite an experimental facade. Convincing Agilent was an ongoing project. I guess they were really passionate about the idea. And critically, it's a series of regular components that you can see all over town in terms of the mesh itself and the cables, but no one's ever put them together in this way. So even during the design phase, we did build a series of prototypes that we could kind of take the client through and explain to them this kind of Vaseline on the lens almost. And then once we had Wilkore on board, it was about saying, okay, we know what we want it to look like, so how are we actually going to make this work?
So we're with Michael Wilkinson now, the Managing Director of Wilkore Construction. Welcome, Michael.
Thank you very much, Michaela.
So Wilkore has had a focus or a history on developing or building warehouses in the past, but this one's a little bit different.
Yes, this is a great progression for us. We have built warehouses in the traditional sense of a warehouse in industrial buildings, and this is really an industrial building. This building has really got inside it the manufacturing future of tomorrow. And it's a fascinating thing for us as a business to have progressed from a very simple portal frame buildings to a sophisticated building like this, which is, as I say, an industrial building at heart.
And what are some of the differences that you need to incorporate or can sometimes be a bit challenging when you compare where you started and where you are now?
I think precision. I think all these buildings require much greater precision in how you build them. They have much more sophisticated systems in them, mechanical systems. We have a system in here that will allow you to test an instrument over its lifetime. So that's what's called accelerated lifetime testing. Now the ability to be able to put that into a building, the precision in which you have to build the building to do that is unique. And they're the things that are part of the way these buildings are different to a traditional industrial building. And that's what manufacturing in the future is going to look like for Australia.
And do you have a favourite part of the building?
Well, as I said, I love the veil. I think the veil's fantastic. It gives that sense of hiding the building from what it really is. You would think it was Agilent's global headquarters, but in fact it's their spectroscopy research and development headquarters. So all of their spectroscopy equipment that they make into the future will be designed and developed here. So it makes Agilent here in Victoria an initial part of their global supply chain, and that's why how we as a country have to play in the manufacturing opportunities of the future. We're not going to build big car manufacturing plants anymore, but we can do these things which employs hundreds of people in highly skilled jobs, which creates great things for our economy and really interesting opportunities for builders like us.
Well, we're inside the building now, and I've got Philip Binns with me, the Vice President of Agilent Technology. Welcome, Philip.
Thank you.
So this is the hub of the building and really where the people are, the staff are as well. So tell me about some of the thinking behind it, and especially about encouraging connectivity and interaction amongst the staff.
Sure. When we first designed the building, it was all about workflow. This is the first time we've had in this facility that you see around you, it's the first time we've really had a brand new facility that's been set up for the workflow that we have. We're a heavily engineering-based business, project team driven. We're going to have very small projects, 4 or 5 people, and we're going to have large projects, 40 people at a time that might be on that. And as such, the workflows that we had prior to this building were very disjointed, so we would have different types of engineering facilities in different parts of the building, test infrastructure either here on site or not even on the site. It could have been way off site that we had to go to get test facilities for our instrumentation that we're developing. And this building provided all of that infrastructure in one hit. And certainly from a workflow perspective, gives all the engineering staff and scientists and everybody who has to be part of a project, it puts them in the project. And the basis of our discussions that we had some years ago with the architects were really around generating a facility where we could save time. So it's all about, the new infrastructure is all about saving time in projects.
And we talked a little bit beforehand about the staircase behind us as well, and how it was important to have several points of connectivity between the different floors to really encourage the connection between people as well. Can you tell me a little bit more about that?
Yeah, it's really based around, most of our people will work on multiple or different projects at different times. So they might be on a project for 2 years, they might be on a project for 2 or 3 months, and then they'll have to move from project to project. So it's about bringing people together and making sure that we can move and be flexible about where people are working within a project as they change. It's also very good for people who are on different floors of a building to continue to interact with each other and share ideas. And a big part of our business is ideas and the production of those, or the translation of those ideas into knowledge, and that knowledge then into new products for the market. Getting people to interact is a key part of that, is to share ideas.
And sneaking a little bit of interactive, or I should say incidental exercise.
I guess you do get that going up and down the stairs. I'm not
do.
quite sure how well the lift is used, but I do know that the stairs are used really heavily in the place, that's for sure.
That's a good thing. It's unusual to see it inside a workspace as well, but something else I am noticing is that it's all open plan and there's people everywhere, but it doesn't seem like it's imposing either.
No, it's worked out very well that way. The infrastructure that we have here on the site is both, it brings people together, but it does provide a reasonable level of privacy. So I think we're working through that, and I think at the moment it's come out really well. The project teams get that sort of seclusion that they need, but they also get the interaction with other teams on the site.
Well, one last question.
Sure.
Do you have a favourite space in the building?
Look, not yet. I must admit I do like the open plan. It's really something it takes a while to get used to. I've come from an office environment as well in my past, but the open plan environment is fantastic as you get used to the more interruptive way of working, where you've got people moving around and everything else.
You can yell out, how do I spell this?
That's right, but I do have, I've got the ability to get private space when I need it, so we've got easy access to meeting rooms, and that works out really well for us.
Okay, thanks, Philip.
My pleasure.
So this is the town square that you were referring to before, Anna. So what were some of the things that you needed to incorporate when you were thinking of the design of the actual staircase and just this central point within the building?
A couple of things. One is that this is really supposed to be the kind of social and I guess almost cultural heart of the building. The idea is that it's a place that celebrates Agilent and Varian's really incredible history here in Melbourne, and also as a space to celebrate their future. So what we wanted to do was embed as many different kinds of micro-environments within this space as possible. So the stair itself actually has a kind of museum embedded within it that celebrates some of their incredible innovations and inventions. We've also got a kind of a collaborative breakout space which has some original artwork. And then just a bunch of social spaces where people can have their coffee, have a conversation, in addition to the more structured, I guess, breakout spaces within the workspace.
And Philip referred to that before as well, the breakout spaces, the various meeting spaces as well, and they're quite innovative as well, aren't they? So what was some of the thinking behind that?
Yeah, so the open plan workspace is really divided up into almost kind of small villages or kind of project teams, and we were cognizant of the fact that people aren't really hugely passionate about open plan, particularly engineers and scientists. So we wanted to create a sense of territory, and there are these pods that break up the space, provide some acoustic softening, and internally everything is flexible. So the furniture goes up and down, they can have a stand-up meeting, there's whiteboard paint on all of the walls, so it's kind of a really interactive, provocative thinking space. And the workplace generally is quite white and light. The pods are based on the colours of the spectrum, so that's kind of a little bit of colour, but we really wanted to make sure that the town square had a kind of a texture and a depth and a solidity to it, which is where the geometry of the stair comes into things and the complexity of the concrete.
I was going to say, we haven't forgotten about you, Sebastian. No doubt you had a lot of complexities to deal with as well, with just the construction of some of the elements that Anna's touched on that had to be incorporated or wanted to be incorporated. So what were some of the things that you needed to keep in mind?
This staircase will probably have to be the most challenging aspect on the project from a construction perspective. The brief from Anna was that she wanted a monolithic type structure, wanted to be off form, so didn't want it to be rendered or patched in any way, shape or form. So when we peeled away the formwork, that's how it had to finish up effectively. So what we've got here is a formed concrete structure which was done in 3 separate stages. It was done from a boom through the window on level 2 and dropped down to the bottom of the town square where we're standing here. And it took about 8 weeks to do it in its entirety. And this is what we've got here today, yeah.
And as Anna touched on, there's a lot of light in here as well. Was that quite difficult to deal with in terms of your history of developing warehouses, but there are a lot of light and office space that's in here too?
I think so. I think fortunately from a construction perspective we did have these big windows because a lot of this was done after the main structure went up. It was done from a timing perspective. The stairs didn't need to be here to get the rest of the building up, so they were done after the main structure went up. So the building went up, the steel went up, the facade was happening, but we were building these stairs inside the building, so if we didn't have these large windows, it would have been particularly challenging from a construction perspective, yeah. And
Sebastian, if you had to choose a sacred space, a special space in here, what would it be?
I'm a builder, so it has to be where we're standing here. This staircase, this structure is very impressive, and I love it, I really do.
And Anna, how about you? What's your favourite feature?
I'm going to be greedy and have one and a bit. So I would say the balcony just outside where we're standing, which is this kind of moment where you can actually touch the veil. It was really important to me through the whole design process that eventually you can actually touch this thing that is incredibly rough and industrial but looks so soft. And the courtyard below where you were filming with Michael, which is this kind of fantastic, feels like you're in a museum in Berlin or something. It's this kind of very solid civic space.
Great. Well, thank you so much for spending time with us today and sharing both the design and the construction perspective for what is a really unusual building in the middle of middle suburbia.
Yes, thank you.
Thanks, Michaela.
You're watching Sacred Spaces. My name's Michaela Drieberg and we'll see you next time.